Good morning and welcome to the summer webinar series sponsored by the Office of Off-Campus Student and Family Engagement. I'm your host, Jay Jackson, the coordinator for Family Engagement. Today's webinar is Wellness Promotion presented by Micah Hughes. Please note the following housekeeping guidelines. As a participant, you are unable to speak directly with presenters, but you may use the Q&A function on Zoom and the chat feature on the Facebook Live. We are unable to see you all. Your cameras and microphones have been muted for this webinar. Questions will be taken after the presentation. Please ensure that you do not place personal identifying information in your questions. If you have a question that is not answered during the presentation, you may reach out to Micah. And thank you for participating in today's webinar. Here's your presenter, Micah Hughes.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited to talk with you about wellness promotion, who our department is, and what it is that we offer for students. I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can follow along with me with my presentation today. So give me one moment just to get that set up. Let's see if we can get it on presentation. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that now. And so what we're going to talk about today really is just a little bit more about who wellness promotion is, what we do, how we interact with students, our areas that we focus on. Also talking about the importance of families initiating discussions with their students about sometimes sensitive and difficult to talk about topics, such as alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, or interpersonal violence. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit more about our promoters of wellness, which are a group of students who work for the department as peer health educators on campus. And so this is the wellness promotion team. So I'm the director, Micah Harrell, and then we have an interpersonal violence prevention coordinator, Mandy Parente, and our alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention coordinator, Christina Canfield. Here are really the areas that we focus on that we know can impact students' ability to be successful, and we know that they're making decisions outside of the classroom about these topics. And so we focus on helping them develop skills in these areas that are critical in determining how they navigate choices that impact their well-being. We do this by conducting outreach across campus, hosting fun and educational events, and training peer educators to be experts on these topics so that they can have impactful conversations with college students and influence the campus culture in a positive way. Our peer educators, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but they are nationally certified. It is a paid on-campus position, and it's really a great position for development of a lot of skills that folks can use regardless of what their academic major is. So starting the conversation about the importance of family impact, we're hosting this webinar as a part of this Parent and Families Orientation series because we recognize how important role families play when it comes to helping set their student up to make healthy choices once they come to campus. It's so important to be having these conversations before students come to campus and checking in on these issues every so often while they're in college. We know that these topics can be sensitive and difficult topics to bring up with your students, so we want to assist you in identifying specific strategies you can use to help that conversation go well and for it to be impactful with your student. So I like this quote because I think it really is relevant. Sending your children to college without coaching them about how to deal with drugs and alcohol would be like giving them the keys to the car without teaching them how to drive. We know that it's something that comes up for most students at some point in their college career, and they have to have thought about it ahead of time so that they can act in the ways that they want to act, that they have had forethought about, so that they aren't caught in this situation where they aren't prepared for how to deal with that. And so I want to talk about the college effect first as to why this is important. So the college effect refers to the first 6 weeks of the semester where students may sometimes choose to engage in risky alcohol or other substance use. And it happens because there tends to be an increased availability of substances, as well as an absence of parents and the strong desire to fit in with their peer group. And so all of these characteristics can combine to create this potentially risky situation and room for decision about substance use. And so we know that family education and intervention before your student comes to college can really reduce the college effect. Talking about them to help them think ahead of time about how they will respond is really a very important skill to have. And even if your student never engages in higher risk behaviors, they may want to interact with a peer who does, and empowering them with information about how they could handle a situation like that or intervene and be an active bystander is also a really important skill, and it helps influence that healthy campus culture. I'm going to talk a little bit now about some of our data, because this sometimes is surprising to both parents and to students. And so we know that here at UAB, our alcohol use among our undergraduate students is lower than the national average. We conduct what's called the National College Health Assessment. And so this helps us understand what our students' behaviors are. And we can compare our students to all students across the nation who also take this assessment. And so this is good news. We are happy to know that our students are choosing to engage in substance use, or alcohol use in particular, but substance use overall, at rates that are lower than the national average. I don't have a graph for this, but I can let you know that on average, 1 in 3 UAB students report abstaining from alcohol entirely, which is a significant portion of our students. For students who do choose to drink, only about 55% of our students reported that they had consumed alcohol in the last month, which means that they're drinking at kind of more sporadically rather than regularly. And then we also know that students reported a lower BAC the last time they drank than the national sample, which means that they're drinking fewer drinks paced over a longer period of time. And this is a very important strategy for students who do consume alcohol that can help them reduce risk of harm associated with alcohol use. One of the things that's really noteworthy here, and it's an important strategy to talk about with your student, is that this data, which we know to be true of UAB and the national student, is actually in contrast to what is oftentimes portrayed about college student alcohol use behavior in media. And so if we can help correct this misperception that most students drink and that many of them drink in high-risk ways, students may feel less pressured to conform to that image. But if they believe that the ways in which it's often portrayed in the media are true, then they may feel more pressured to engage in high-risk substance use. And so this in itself is a very effective strategy in how to correct a common misperception and then have hopefully a positive impact on how pressured that student feels to engage in the high-risk or the low-risk behavior. Tobacco and nicotine is another area of focus for us, and we are lower than the national average here, but it is still certainly an area of concern. We are seeing an increase in tobacco use with adolescents and young adults through vaping, and we know that there is no safe use of tobacco. And so this is an area where we plan to increase our prevention education efforts. Very few students, only about 5%, are reporting cigarette use. However, many more students are reporting vaping or e-cigarette use. The vaping industry has done a good job making it seem like consuming tobacco in this way is less risky, cleaner, and more desirable. And we're seeing that students are believing this message. And so it's very important to be talking with your student about vaping and linking vaping use with tobacco use, which students coming to college have never not known to be a significant health risk. Vapes, cigarettes, and Juuls are all tobacco products, and most contain as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes, if not more. An e-cigarette liquid contains heavy metals as well, and cancer-causing agents and harmful toxins. But these are not the information that students are getting through the folks that are marketing these products to them. What they're getting is that these products taste better, smell better, and are cleaner, when in fact they're not. So this is another opportunity to correct a misperception about this that then can have a significant impact on the choices that our students are making. Other areas that we provide education to students on are cannabis, which is marijuana. We talk with them about how this impacts their sleep and memory, which is very important when you think about studying and retaining information. We also talk with them about today's marijuana is not the same as your parents' or grandparents' marijuana, that the potency has increased drastically in the last decade. And we talk with students about driving under the influence, not only with alcohol, but also with marijuana and the significant impact that it has on motor behavior. Prescription stimulants, we talk about students with, because again, there's this contrary belief that prescription stimulants are highly misused by students as a way to increase focus and academic performance. And so we correct a bunch of misperceptions with them about this, letting them know that not only is it illegal to use medication that's not prescribed to you, or to share medication to somebody if it's yours that is prescribed to you, but that misuse is actually associated with a lower GPA. And so we talk with them about this, and then talk about safe ways to help increase academic performance, such as ensuring that you have a good night's sleep regularly and consistently, ways to manage stress, to prepare for exams and study habits. And then we also talk with them about sedatives. Students sometimes don't have that regular sleep schedule, and they can kind of get their sleep schedule out of whack, and they may end up taking sedatives such as over-the-counter sleeping medications. And so we talk with them again about promoting healthy sleep hygiene, and how sedatives, when mixed with alcohols, can actually have a really significant impact on their health and can lead to some overdose issues, actually. And then we also just, again, talk about how it's unsafe to share medications. And so those are some of the other areas that we just educate students with, because we know that those tend to be the most common areas that students may misuse. So it can be hard to talk with your student about these issues, and saying don't do it because I said so really isn't a sufficient conversation. You really want to be able to have a good conversation where you're recognizing that they are moving out, most likely they are an adult, they'll be making adult decisions, and you want them to see you as a friend and a consultant that they can come to and seek advice and kind of have an adult conversation. And so understand and talk to them about higher risk behaviors. So what are some of those higher risk behaviors that you could say, hey, just think about this. So drinking games is one of those. We know that if a person is consuming alcohol through a drinking game, the game is in control of how much and how often they're drinking, and they are not. And so the importance of just recognizing that as a high-risk behavior is really important for them to be thinking about. Or mixing substances. We know that when it comes to mixing substances, it kind of creates this synergistic effect where 1 + 1 does not equal 2, but 1 + 1 = 3. The impact that that substance has on that person is much greater because of the combination of two substances. Also, just normalizing how difficult it is to make decisions that may be different from their friends, and encouraging them to talk with you if they are struggling with this. And another strategy that we spend a lot of time on is sharing the statistics given to you in this presentation that not everyone is partying, that lots of students choose to not drink, and students who do choose to drink tend to drink in low risk ways here. And so just instilling that positive, healthy culture and the facts which correct those misperceptions about alcohol use. So help them. One of the best strategies really is to really think through a plan of action for them. And so think through specific scenarios so that they have thought about how they can respond when a situation might arise. If they have a roommate who's using substances, if they find themselves in a situation around drugs, if they're in a situation where someone around them is showing signs of alcohol poisoning or overdose, or if someone is pressuring them to drink more than they want, how could they refuse? What would they do in these situations? And so really help them talk through and think through these things. So again, they feel a little bit more prepared if they are in these situations. Always encouraging self-care. We know students who prioritize their basic health needs, they have a good regular sleep cycle, they're eating, they have good nutrition, they're engaging in regular physical activity, and are surrounding themselves with a positive peer group, also tend to make healthy choices overall. And then encourage them to get involved. Being involved in registered student organizations and attending campus events provides a fun social atmosphere that is often more controlled and safer because they're not centered around substance use, and they're centered around other social, fun, healthy aspects of campus. We're going to transition now to interpersonal violence. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that is. So interpersonal violence includes sexual violence, dating violence, and stalking. It can also include healthy roommate relationships or friendships. And so what we do is we utilize primary prevention strategies that help students identify aspects of healthy and unhealthy relationships, and to challenge outdated social norms that increase campus safety on campus. Here are some statistics about sexual violence. So this also comes from the same survey that we administer to students that we got the substance use information from. And so overall, UAB students experience interpersonal violence at rates similar to the national average. And we also know that the best way to reduce interpersonal violence on campus is to create a culture of active bystanders. Although 5% seems low for sexual touching is a significant invasion of a person's body. And sexual touching, if a student has experienced sexual touching that's unwanted from a person, that we know that can escalate to another situation where it may be more than that. So we don't like, even though 5% seems low, we really want this to be 0%. We want all students to never personally violate another individual in a sexual way. And we don't want any of our students to be experiencing this. 2%, similarly, that's a very small percentage of students who are reporting that they experience sexual penetration without their consent. And yet 2%, the impact that behavior or that experience has on those 2% of students is significant, and the impact it has on their ability to be academically successful is significant. And so one of the ways that we try to address this is through creating a culture of active bystanders. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Dating violence, students do experience dating violence at rates higher than sexual violence. But again, UAB students are reporting it at a similar rate in comparison with students across the nation. But 22%, which is, 1 in 4, 1 in 5 students are experiencing dating violence in some form. And what this is assessing is that 22% of our students stated and reported that they experienced dating violence in some form, which may include verbal abuse, physical abuse, and controlling behaviors. And 11% of students reported that their intimate relationship had a negative impact on their academic performance. When an individual is in an unhealthy relationship, it can be all-consuming, especially if they have a partner who is demanding that everything revolve around that partner. And so these can have very significant impacts on students' well-being, as well as their ability to be academically successful. Students can help support each other, though, and they can help prevent dating violence. One of the quotes that I'll share related to this is that no person has to do everything, but every person can do something. And so we all have the ability to be empowered, to be able to intervene, to be able to provide support to somebody who is experiencing interpersonal violence. And there's lots of campus resources in which they can take someone if it's more than just a conversation that needs to be had from a supportive friend. Bystander intervention, we have a campaign on campus that talks about that it says that don't fly. And so it features all of these birds that don't actually fly. So you see a kiwi here on this one. And what we do is we talk about this throughout the entire semester. We know that these skills are transferable. It doesn't have to relate only to interpersonal violence. This is excellent if you think somebody is drinking too much alcohol, or if somebody is about to drive after they've consumed any alcohol or other substances, or somebody is really struggling with their mental health or their emotional health or their academic success. You can intervene to help prevent somebody from experiencing any of these negative consequences. But we promoted a lot related to interpersonal violence, and we teach students specific skills of how do you intervene in a way that's direct. How do you intervene in other ways? Maybe somebody isn't a direct person. That doesn't mean they can't intervene. They can also delegate to a friend or an authority figure. They could also even just simply create a distraction in the situation to somehow de-escalate or diffuse the situation. And so we really promote a culture here where Blazers are active bystanders. We help them identify when there might be a need to intervene. Before they can intervene, they have to identify if there's a need for that. And we encourage them to identify ways to safely intervene as well. And so we know that this is an effective tool to combat not only sexual violence, but interpersonal violence, as well as so many other areas. And so I think talking with your student about how do you safely intervene, and again, running through some scenarios, if you were to see this happening, what might you do? And any response is a good response. Again, that quote, nobody has to do everything, but we can all do something. Some tips for how you can talk with your student about these issues is to expand the definition of a relationship. As a student enters college, they may engage in romantic or sexual relationships, but they will also engage in new friendships and having a roommate for the first time and new dynamics with professors. And they are going to have to navigate how all of those relationships go and hopefully be able to put things in place where they can establish a healthy relationship with all of the individuals in their life, and talking with them about how they do that. And for example, if their roommate relationship isn't going well, what they can do about that to effectively address that so it gets addressed early on. Also, encourage your student to be an active bystander and to safely intervene when they see something amiss on campus. And then it's very important to encourage yourself and your student to familiarize themselves with UAB resources for interpersonal violence prevention, including student counseling services, student outreach services, and the Title IX office here on campus. We have a lot of things where if a student just doesn't feel like they can address it, for example, stalking. Oftentimes people don't feel like they can be direct with the stalker. They feel unsafe to do that. There are a lot of campus resources that can intervene and advocate for the student on the student's behalf. I'm going to move in and talk a little bit more now about really, I would say it's the heartbeat of our department. These are our students that we work with. They are wonderful. They are our promoters of wellness. And so their acronym is POW, and they are empowering students and empowering their peers to make healthy choices on campus. So our Promoters of Wellness program gives students an opportunity to make a difference on campus and aims to promote a culture of kindness, compassion, social responsibility, and respect. Our students have all been extensively trained. They complete a semester-long peer education course that our department teaches. You don't have to become a peer educator after you take the course. The course is applicable for many college students, regardless of whether or not they want to apply to become a peer educator, and they will gain the same skills that our peer educators get in how to be experts in these areas, how to talk with students about these, and that knowledge we know infuses and impacts the peer educator or the student who takes the class in tremendous ways. And so all of our peer educators take this course. They become experts in our topic areas, as well as how to facilitate conversations. And they pass a national exam to become a nationally certified peer educator. So it's also just a great resume experience. I will say, I think that students say it's one of the most fun and relevant courses that they take. These are our current peer educators that we have that work for the department. And so we tend to have about 10 students, but we're looking to grow our program. We know the more students we have that are educated on these areas and have the skills to talk with their peers about our topic areas, the more that they positively impact our college campus and our culture here. And we also know, like I mentioned earlier, that one of the greatest impacts that having a peer education program has is on the peer educator themselves. Once they know all of this information, they really are more likely to just make healthy choices consistently and set healthy habits that start in college for the rest of their life. So these are some of our students, and we are actively recruiting students. However, they do have to take the class in order to be able to be eligible to apply. And so here's a little bit about our course. So students who are interested or have room for an elective should enroll in CHHS 426. It's taught every fall and spring. It is a 4-credit elective course, which is open to any major. And students can enroll in the course any year, but we particularly encourage underclassmen. So freshmen and sophomores, we feel like this information is the most relevant and the most important for them to get. Students who then, as I've mentioned, who complete the course are eligible to become a certified peer educator. The course also prioritizes self-care. So you heard me mention earlier in one of my initial slides that self-care is one of the areas that we prioritize. We know that sometimes students feel very stressed, they feel overwhelmed, they often get over-involved. And so we want them to, again, develop these kind of self-care routines so that once they're establishing that, they always have that to fall back on as the semester ebbs and flows with the demands, and sets them up to be able to utilize self-care and prioritize that for the rest of their life. And so this photo is actually a picture of one of our students who took the class. And at the end of the semester, they, throughout the entire semester, they're learning about peer education. They're learning about all of our topic areas so that they are getting, kind of a health education level of expertise about our topic areas. And then one of the things that they also do throughout is they are having weekly activities where they're talking about what they did for self-care, what interfered with their self-care, what worked for their self-care. And then at the end, they do a poster presentation where they kind of summarize what their experience was and everything that actually worked for them. We also asked them to talk about, because they have to do a team project, and how did you navigate that? Because that, of course, is a relationally based project, and that provides opportunities for relationships to go well and also to not go well. And figuring out what your role is on a team is a really important thing to be able to know, like, how do you contribute? What is your role? How do you help the team accomplish what needs to be done? And so we talk with them about that. And so here's an opportunity for them to just put together a professional poster presentation and kind of summarize all of the things that they learned about their self-care, about their team, and then also about the educational topics that they learned about in the course. This is a quote from one of our students who took the class, who stated, "My mind has been open to so many different perspectives and opinions, and I am grateful for the opportunity to have participated in this course. I'm looking forward to seeing how this course will develop my leadership style in the future." And so we hear from so many students that this is one of their favorite classes, that although it is a 400 level course, that it is one of the most fun and impactful classes that they've had. And so we encourage every student to go through the class, and then they can consider whether or not they'd like to be a peer educator. Wanted to highlight a few of the resources that we have on campus that we are often referring students to and promoting. And so student counseling services is very important resource for students. You know, what we hope to do is we actually hope to prevent some of the stuff that students would need to go to student counseling services for, but we recognize we can't always prevent those things, and people just need additional support along the way. And so we really promote student counseling services as a really important resource that if a student feels they need it, they should be getting connected with it early on. And our peer educators are often talking with students and encouraging them when they identify that that student really can benefit from it. Student health services is also a really important resource for students in taking care of their basic health and making sure that they know where it is. We're actually located in the same building as student counseling services and student health services, and they just offer top-notch services and health services to students. The Title IX office, I mentioned that earlier. Title IX offices have been established in universities across the nation. As you know, there's been a lot of focus on the number of students who experience sexual assault on college campuses and how that has been handled sometimes. And so the Title IX office really is there as a resource to support students and provide accommodations if students are experiencing interpersonal violence. They also will conduct an investigation into what is happening. They have reported to us that stalking has been their highest rates of reporting recently and currently. And so again, I would encourage you to be talking with your students about, what does stalking look like? How might you know if somebody's being stalked? Or, you know, there's sometimes stalking looks a lot like somebody wanting to just have a new relationship with you. And so I think the biggest difference there is asking them, well, is this something you want? Do you want them leaving you flowers on your car or showing up in places where you are? Or does this feel like it's an invasion and an intrusion in your personal space? And if it's an invasion or intrusion on their personal space, okay, let's talk about that. You know, first let them know that you're not interested and it makes you uncomfortable. And then if they continue, we have something that we really need to address. And that would be something that would be reportable through our Title IX office. And then they can work with that student as well as the person who's making them uncomfortable to address the situation. And then I also want to promote our collegiate recovery community. We have a number of students who come into college who are already in recovery. And then we have students who along the way, while they're in college, may recognize that they have an unhealthy relationship with substance use. And so we have a really tight community of students who are in the collegiate recovery community who create social aspects and support for each other to help them maintain their sobriety. Like I mentioned, we are in Student Health and Wellness Center. You can reach us for additional questions or to find out more information about the class in wellnesspro@uab.edu. We're very active on our Instagram, and that may be another way to, as you're trying to figure out how to have conversations with your students, to follow us on our Instagram. We do a lot of education out there, and so it's our students developing ways to talk with their peers about these issues. And so it may also provide some additional education. We have some great videos on there. We have a video I remember we just did last semester that kind of modeled refusal skills. So here's an example of how the PALs are encouraging that you could do refusal skills if you find you're in a situation where somebody's pressuring you to drink and you don't want to, or pressuring you to drink more than you want. And so we try to model a lot of that. We've got some bystander intervention videos on there as well. And so I think it's a really great resource for parents and families as well as students to scroll through there and kind of see what it is that we're talking about. And it might help you facilitate a conversation with your student as well. And so with that, I will actually just say thank you. And what I'd like to do is transition into asking if there are any questions from folks. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Yes, thank you all for attending today's webinar. If you have questions, remember to put them in the Q&A function of the Zoom and in the chat feature and on the Facebook Live. Thank you so much, Micah, for your presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you. I really appreciated having this opportunity. I know I would love to be able to do this in person with folks because I think that I could ask questions all along the way. And so I recognize this is just a lot of information of me talking with you, but also I would like to share my personal email as well. And so I'm going to put that into the chat. Happy to talk with parents individually over the phone or via email if there's any questions that they have.
Okay. And right now we have a quick wellness poll that we would like for you all to complete, and we can discuss it if you have any questions. And while you're completing your poll, we have a couple of questions that came in. Was this information already shared with incoming students? Have you had this presentation with incoming students?
So what we have talked about with students is we've done a session where it's a breakout session and students can choose what session they're going to go to, as well as parents and families. So we are offering those on the bonus days. And so the bonus days for orientation, Wellness Promotion has a session where we talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. And then what we have focused on, because it's just a brief 20-minute session, we have focused on healthy relationships. How do you identify healthy boundaries and have healthy relationships with folks? So we're doing something very brief related to that. I also wanted to mention that you will be receiving electronically a publication called Blazer Well. And Blazer Well also talks about substance use, as well as what happens if a student gets in trouble for substance use through our conduct office. But really, it's a tool for parents and families to, again, have these conversations with students. It provides some of the data that I shared with you today, and so that you can use those. And then also we have, as part of virtual orientation, another session where students can break out. And usually folks are only stopping in for 5 minutes or so. And so we're mostly just talking with them a little bit about who we are and how they can get involved with peer education. Ideally, though, what we hope to do is we hope that you'll be having these conversations with your students before they come. And then the first week we get busy, we are out and about on campus, we go to students. So we have a big gazebo that's really appealing, and we have swag that we give away. And so we really encourage students to come. So we go and we set that up in common places, such as outside the commons dining area, or outside the hill, or on the green. And students are walking by and they're like, oh, what's going on over here? And so we're out multiple times a week and reinforcing the information that hopefully you've helped them be thinking about ahead of time. And so we are doing that throughout the entire academic year, and especially starting week 1 with fun events. I'll call it kind of deceptive education, because they're just coming to a dance party and they don't realize that, all of these announcements and all of the activities that they're going to be engaging with are talking about how to reduce risk of harm in a variety of areas. And so we have a lot of ways that we engage students in these once they're on campus, and we're not doing quite as much during orientation, but still a little bit. Thank you for that question.
You're welcome. Also, we know that some students have counseling sessions that they take away from campus.
Yes.
Are they able to continue their therapy on campus, or is that something we need to reach out to Student Counseling Center for?
Yes, so I would encourage you to reach out directly to Student Counseling Services. They will tell you exactly what that process is. It's usually a release of records, so that they can kind of transfer and understand what the student was working with their counselor with, so that they can make sure that they are having kind of a good transition to Student Counseling Services here. So reach out directly to Student Counseling Services for that.
And they do have an upcoming webinar in July, just so everyone knows. So, Meredith, if you would please give us the results from the poll. Oh, there we go. Micah, are you able to see the results?
I am, yes.
We have a lot of strongly agrees.
Excellent. I'm so happy. I mean, I really think that sometimes it's hard. I mean, I'm a parent and there's just a lot of conversations that you have to have with students. And if you aren't an expert in prevention of interpersonal violence, but you want to talk with your students about these, what do you do? And so I just wanted to provide students with some tools and strategies and education for how they can do that. And so I'm really excited to see lots of agree and strongly agree that our goals were hopefully met that we wanted to do during this webinar.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, we would like to thank you all for your time. We thank you for presenting to us today, and we hope that you all have a great afternoon. And once this webinar ends, it is complete and you can't go back. So make sure that you have Micah's information to reach out to her, or you can reach out to our office and we can get you all connected. Thank you all and have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.